Thank you, everybody, and good morning. Thank you for taking part in our people dancing discussion. Today is really about supporting disabled artists and a bit of discussion and advice amid the Covid-19 situation that we find ourselves in. So I am going to thank you once again, and perhaps if we can go around the table and just introduce ourselves, what we do. I'm the Director of Engagement at People Dancing, and my name's Louise Wildish, even though my title there says People Dancing. Kimberley Harvey, who I'll hand to next, is going to be chairing the whole meeting, and I'm just going to be here to sort of supervise, if you like, if anything happens. Okay, so Kimberley, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. I'm Kimberley Harvey. I'm a freelance dance artist, choreographer and teacher. Kate, do you want to introduce yourself next?
Yeah, my name's Kate Stanforth. I'm a disabled dancer, choreographer and dance teacher, and I also do modelling, so I dance on adverts and things like that too. I'm Joseph.
Hi, my name's Jo. I'm from Wales. I'm currently a company dancer with Ballet Cymru, and I'm also completing a degree in dance and performance through a university in Manchester. Do you want to go next, Laura?
Sure. Hey, so my name is Laura Dajao, aka Laura D Dancers. I'm a freelance inclusive dance artist. Doing things, I'm just interested in lots of different things, so I try and fuse them all together: hip hop, contemporary, dancehall, spoken word, music, everything. So yeah, and I make my own work as well as do bits of teaching here, there and everywhere, but that's me in a nutshell. Kitty.
Hey, so I'm Kitty. As we all am a freelance dance artist. I've also worked alongside Kimberley for quite a long time. We're both associate artists with Canduco Dance Company. So I spent many years leading their youth dance company alongside such amazing artists as Kimberley. And as everyone here, I also make my own work. Yeah, I think that's me. Thank you.
Cool. So as Louise said, we're here because we're all in a very strange situation right now, what with COVID-19, and we'll find ourselves in a period of isolation. But today we want to talk specifically about the situation for dancers and disabled dancers particularly, because obviously as freelancers and as dancers we know it's hard for everybody, but this is a space specifically to acknowledge the disabled artists out there and maybe some specific knowledge that we have or that we share, and the experiences that we have, but also to support one another and to offer ways that potentially we can find to stay present in the world and stay present within the sector, because who knows how the sector is going to change depending on how long this goes on for and also afterwards. So basically it's just a bit of an excuse to have a chat with you all. But the first thing we wanted to talk about was some of those specific issues, because like I know that I've come across friends that have been, because I think we're all in week 5 of isolation now, but I know that I've come across friends that have been actually isolating for longer. So that we wanted to talk a bit more about some of the specific issues that potentially might be affecting disabled people around COVID-19 and how we're dealing with them, yeah, and just to make some space for that. So I was wondering, well, I was going to ask first of all if Kitty, would you like to talk first about any differences that you know of the experiences of disabled artists in a time like this, and and how you navigate that?
Was that me you asked, or
yes.
was that Kate? Okay, so yeah. It's having a Kitty and a Kate on the same. It's a really interesting question for me, because apart from actually having had it, having had COVID-19 and finally having got through it, my life hasn't been at all different in that I already spend a lot of time stuck at home in isolation, you know, and I'm sure that that's true for a lot of us, that we all go through these periods where due to health stuff we might not get out of the house a lot, we might not see and interact with other people a lot, we might already be having to lead our own practices from home rather than getting out to all the classes that everyone else is doing. So we might already have quite a developed sense of what we do, what we need from home. So quite aside from our basic daily practices, which, you know, when we're in the home is very different from when we're in the studio. We have less space. We might be dancing on carpet, which changes what you do so much. We also, I think, have a strong sense of what we need to take care of our heads, which I think has, looking at my friends for whom this is a new thing, has been a real issue. So all of the things like making sure that you get up, you might not be getting up at like a super early time every day, like you know, but you getting up at a sensible time, getting up at a regular time, making sure that you eat meals at regular meal times rather than snacking throughout the day, doing those little things that help to delineate what your time is and what it's for, having a shower, getting dressed, having just gone through a big bout of illness, the joy of not being in pajamas is so good. If you can do it, do it. Like, oh my God, I put makeup on today. It was a treat. Taking that pleasure in those little things is I think really important. Yeah.
And in terms of thanks, Kitty. And in terms of how we as dancers, how we maintain access to work as well, have any of you had any experiences in terms of, have your interactions changed in any way, or with the people that you work for, or what's the situation with work and with your dance practice? Does anybody have any thoughts on that they want to offer? Yes, Kate.
So I obviously used to go into my dance studio to teach, which wasn't that far away. And now I do all my lessons online, so everything is now online. And as Kitty said before, it is very challenging having such a limited space. But I also think that having these online lessons is totally opens the community up, so it's allowed so many more people to access dance. So I started off just by teaching my regular lesson, which was IDTA ballet. I teach able-bodied people, so I just teach IDTA grade 3 ballet. But then I started doing an inclusive dance class on a Monday, and we ended up getting 40 people on the first week who wanted to take part from all over the world, because there hasn't been, you know, online inclusive dance classes available before. So I think although it's been a really, really difficult time and people have had to move online and it's really hard not being able to have a studio space, having to adapt to this has also opened up doors to so many people, and now is given a lot of people, you know, the ability to be able to learn dance. And we've used our skills because we know how to adapt to people who have got chronic illnesses, who can't move properly because they've got dislocations and fatigue, and people are like, oh, this is what I've been searching for a long time, but they don't have the facilities in their area. So it's actually gone down really well. It's just we have to put in so much extra effort because, as Kitty said, we don't have I don't have a bar at home, so I can't do ballet very easily. I don't have my wheelchair doesn't fit in my house very well, so I can't teach. And a lot of the stuff that I would be doing is I teach verbally. I teach a lot of verbal things. So a lot of my things that I do are corrections, and I would use the demonstrator when I was teaching, whereas now I don't have somebody who I can demonstrate on, and that's really tiring for me. So it's took a lot more energy. But then I look at the people who have got into dance, and it really is worth it. So yeah, I think it's a mixture, but it's nice to see that the dance community is really opening up now. Things are starting to go online.
Amazing, thank you. Jo and Laura, do either of you have anything that you want to add to that from your experiences of navigating any specific issues or things you've come across?
Well, I'll go. So for me, I would say that coming from such a structured day where it was like I'd be in the studio from about 9 till 5, Monday to Friday, I think not having that structure has been quite weird. And obviously I got myself into a routine of, I go to the studio, I warm up, I do classes, and then I go into rehearsals for a new work that we were doing for a programme that unfortunately has been now cancelled. And so I think for me, it's kind of been adapting to a new normal. So now I'm currently, getting up, trying to maintain some sort of routine. I'll get up, I'll take part in some classes online, either through searching myself, or I'll tune into some of the classes that my university is providing at the moment. And then afterwards I'll tend to do my own ballet warm-up. But for me, I would say I've been quite lucky in the sense that Ballet Cymru have devised a digital plan for this isolation period, and they've given each of the dancers tasks to do. So I've been quite involved with that. So that's been a rather interesting experience because we've not been doing it live per se. So we've been filming it, and then it's being posted on social media and YouTube. So that's been a new experience. Filming and then watching yourself back. So I would say in terms of that, it's good because we've been engaging with new people, but we don't know how many people we've been engaging with because we're not live, and we've not had the capacity to do live work yet. But I've also been very lucky as well that me and my sister have been able to participate and lead a Capuzio live class on Instagram. So that was quite, again, an interesting experience. So I would think that one thing I think I've built on in my skills is that previously I'd been more performance-based, and whilst performing is absolutely my number one priority, to be able to build upon more dance teaching methods has been quite a challenging and good experience for me.
Amazing, thank you, Jo. Laura, is there anything you wanted to add before we move on?
Yeah, I suppose just my experience of COVID-19 and this isolation period has been mostly it's been okay, and I think it's because, I don't know, a lot of you know about sort of my lift problems, and I've actually spent a lot of time indoors anyway because I think it was almost practice, as it were, for this kind of time, and my lift's been down for 2 months at a time and stupid nonsense like that, and actually it's been quite nice to sort of come into this isolation period being actually I'm a little prepared for it, so that okay, I have a feeling my headphones have died. Can you hear me still?
Can hear you, yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think it's been nice practice, and where I'm mostly a performer and a creator and maker, I don't teach that often because for me it's not my forte. So I tend to, I've been asked to do some online classes by various people, but it's not my forte, and it's something that I'm trying to get into, or I've been asked to do, and I've been like, okay, I'm going to do it because it's this time, isn't it? So it's just nice to share the experience with everyone in a way that we can all enjoy it inclusively and stuff. So yeah, that's it really. I mean, to be fair, I'm actually kind of loving lockdown as it were. So it's given me the time and space to sort of do the things that creatively I didn't have time for, as well as, and that's my headphones dead. So, and then, yeah, to be able to actually do the normal stuff like laundry and, you know, be able to cook stuff at home. So, yeah.
It's the whole package, isn't it? Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. The next thing we wanted to talk about is the beautiful thing that is funding, that we all have to encounter in our lives as dance artists. And specifically, I was doing some research around this before talking to you guys, and we wanted to signpost to any specific funds and organisations or resources that we've come across during this period that are responding to the needs of disabled artists. Now, we know, so People Dancing, we know have generated some resources, and I know that there are some organisations that are offering support to dance artists out there. But I wanted to see just how, from your perspective, how you're dealing with the funding situation and what funds you've come across, if you have, and maybe how that differs depending on where we are in the country as well. So I have some thoughts around funding, but maybe if we talk to you guys first, and then, because I'm sure there's going to be some overlap in terms of what we've come across anyway. So I don't want to put anybody on the spot with funding, but is there anybody that would like to go first in terms of what they've come across or their experiences in terms of the financial situation? Yes, Laura, hi.
So I think the only I mean, obviously there's Arts Council funding and stuff. I know that they've stopped sort of the big sort of the normal funds like, you know, DYCP to accommodate for COVID-19. But for sure, I know Unlimited are outreaching to sort of alumni who have had funding in the past, and they've got a couple of rounds coming up. First being the 5th of May. Yeah, so if you've had unlimited funding before, yeah, they're sort of reaching out to you and you sort of contact them and there's something there. But I mean, I know that's some fun that I was looking into for something that I'm interested in creating, but I'm not too sure about any other funds, to be fair. I haven't been looking, as it's not been the #1 priority for me in terms of, you know, needing the support or wanting to create work in that sense and needing that kind of financial support in a way. So yeah, that's
cool. Thanks for it. And I think, am I right in thinking that there are several rounds for Unlimited? There's one in May, June and July, I think.
Yeah, I think it's up till July. Yeah, definitely June. Yeah. So every month there's a deadline. Like I said, the first round is, oh no, not the first, but like the next round, the next deadline is the 5th of May. And I think obviously they're hoping to implement the bigger funds and sort of put the older funds back into play towards the end of the year, hoping that COVID-19 and all this kind of stuff brushes over. But who knows? We don't know. So for the immediate term, I think it's £1,000 per round or per application, and you can sort of, they send you for questions and this kind of stuff. But I mean, yeah, something to look into, I guess.
Yeah. Are any of you applying to Arts Council for some of the emergency funds, the individual funds? No, me neither. And was there any particular reason why? Yes, Kitty.
So I think a lot of the existing funds out there basically are focused on a particular model of success that I think for a lot of people who work with producers and things and who've worked down specific paths, it means that you've been successfully getting Arts Council funding, you've been successfully getting unlimited funding, whatever it is, and then so you're in a position where you can then apply for further funding from them. If, like a lot of dance artists, you kind of have something of a portfolio career where your basic day-to-day before this has been working a bit on someone else's project, doing a bit of teaching, doing a bit of crowdfunding, using fees from performances to make your work, then you're not in a position to apply for any of this stuff. And that's certainly my case. I have a lot of difficulties cognitively when it comes to doing things like these more complex applications, so have never gone close to applying for Arts Council funding previously because it is not accessible to me. So that means that all of these things are now closed already. You know, I've been successfully making a living as an artist, but not that way. And so we're now a little bit.
So potentially then, does that mean that, do we think that this is an opportunity for other ways for people to become more aware of other ways of maybe generating funding for projects, or an opportunity for these structures to change maybe? Or is that what we would like to see in a utopian world? Do we think that this is a possibility? Like, how could this happen, do we think?
That's certainly what I would like. I would definitely like a world where we're starting to think about why have these things been so inaccessible, or why are they only accessible to people who work within certain models or who have certain access to support systems. You know, producers are amazing. If you can find a producer who gets your work and can work with you, they have this amazing skill set. But also, I think if you're a producer, it's a really tough life, and most people I know who want to work with freelance artists on a practical level financially can't, because you know, just like us, they've also got to be able to pay their bills, they've got to be able to pay their rents. So for me, I've been I think like the rest of not the rest of us, Kate has also been doing classes online and looking at what are the payment models of those, and what are the ways forward to making that financially viable, which is again it's a very different thing for looking for actual funding.
Right. Joe and Kate, you were already working for companies before COVID-19. So in terms of employment, how is that? Has that been able to continue? And in terms of funding, like, are they still able to support you at that point, or has the models changed in terms of how that they're engaging with you? Has the work continued?
Okay, so for me, well, obviously with Ballet Cymru, they were planning to tour their new production beginning on the 22nd of May, and then they usually have like a summer season that goes to July, and then there'll be like a summer break, and then they'd pick up again like September, October time. So at the moment, as it stands, the performances for most of the well, all of the summer season have been cancelled, and they've looked at pushing back the performances to hopefully, if things open up, begin around like September, October time. But again, because everything is a bit uncertain at the moment, we don't really know what's going to happen. So in terms of that, that's been a bit of an unknown, shall we say. But I have been lucky that because of this digital plan, we are getting paid some wages to be involved in that. So that's very nice and very kind of them. And I know that the Arts Council have been the Arts Council of Wales have been very supportive of Ballet Cymru and everything that they've been doing. So that's quite good. So yeah, I would say it is quite uncertain at the moment, but again, I'm thankful for being involved in like the digital plan and things like that, and then just hopefully we'll just have to see what happens as to whether you know, the theatres open up, because again, we're not sure because of how the contracts work. It could mean that maybe I wouldn't get employed again by them until next April, but we just have to see what happens.
Oh, thanks, Joe.
Welcome.
Did you have anything you wanted to add, Kate?
Well, because of my health, I was only teaching for 45 minutes a week, so I didn't really have that much of an income anyway from dance. But I'm still teaching that. It's just my wages aren't the same as they were before, because the company that I was working for, they're not eligible for any government support. So we're kind of just trying to keep that business running. But so I've still got a bit of wages coming through there, but not a significant amount. And then I've started the inclusive dance classes, but I'm just keeping that free for the moment because it's something that I like to do and something that I think a lot of people need at the moment, but I don't want to start charging. In the future I will. I'll set it up as, you know, something that people will subscribe to, but at the moment it's just such a hard time for everyone that I feel like the way that I want it to go is just to keep it like live stream and keep things free. I think a lot of artists are doing that at the moment as well, so it's the best way. But another source of income that I did have was through like the modelling and dancing for adverts and things like that, and obviously all of those have been cut now. Nobody has a budget, nobody can travel, so I used to travel for things like that, and that's a significant source that's going to be stopped for a long time. So it's just a waiting game, I think, like everybody else. It's just see what happens after the pandemic and see if people are going to have the same budgets, because, you know, every company has been affected, and are they going to want to start employing people, but also are they going to want to start paying, you know, I'm more expensive than everybody else because I come with a carer and I come with, you know, all these special extra things that I need, like I need to travel down the day before, I need to, you know, I need all these extra things. Are they gonna still want to employ a disabled artist who costs probably 2 or 3 times as much, or are they gonna just want to go with somebody who can do the job, who's already down in London? It's going to be really interesting to see if all the companies really are inclusive, or if they're going to just stick to the budget. So we'll see how this all turns out pretty soon.
I think that's such it's such a key point, and it relates to the next question actually, which is, what skills do we have as disabled artists that are specific pools of knowledge that we have that can actually support others in adapting their practice and actually basically showing off what we can do, and actually go, we know how to do this, like, and we are worth the money, we are worth your time, and this is how you can make your practice more inclusive, more accessible. And it would be really nice if we just went round and like just shared like some key things, like maybe 1 or 2 things that you know that either you or disabled artists you know do really well, and that how you could share that with other companies or other individuals that are looking to work more accessibly. Does that make sense? Cool. Who wants to go first? Laura, can I pick on you?
Oh, okay. Okay. Sure. I think in terms of inclusive practice for me, I tend to employ an element of sign in my practice. So I mean, I think it's just about being able to communicate well, and you know, just accounting for the different people with different disabilities, and you can't account for all of them at the same time, but it's just being aware of that someone in the audience and someone who's watching you may have a disability of some sort, may it be a visual impairment, a hearing impairment, it's something. So it's just about trying to be aware, and so just, you know, allocating your language and sort of your actions, and sort of just emoting well through sort of, especially when we're online, we've got this interface now, so we can really zoom in and be like, okay, animate ourselves, and there's that kind of thing as well. So in terms of my practice and how I make my practice inclusive, that's where I'm at right now, and I'm looking to do more in terms of sort of exploring audio description and things like this, and I'm hoping to implement it in my work, and you know, if I ever do teach class, then perhaps that's something as well. So yeah, I mean, that's it from me.
Thank you. Katie, do you want to go?
I think that one of the things that we do really well, and that I'm proud of with myself and the way that I work, is a sense of being really clear about actually what our goals are. I think in a lot of the dance world, it comes from what people have done before. We know what and people just follow the standard patterns and they make nice shapes, and that's dancing. Whereas when we plan a class, when we plan an activity, we take the time to really think about, well, what is it that I want to achieve in this? If I'm going to be offering an adaptation, if I'm going to be offering several options for the same task, what is the heart of the task? So at the moment I'm teaching or leading online classes, and I'm doing a yoga-ish section every day. And I do the same sequence twice, but it looks like two very different sequences because I do it seated and then I do it out of the chair. And in looking for those adaptations, I'm not looking for, well, how will my seated section look the same as my non-seated section? It's how will I get the similar types of stretches, similar types of strengthening from a completely different physical position. Whereas if we're going into something that is about dance and how we look, then we start to think about what are my goals on creating a shared aesthetic. So I think we've got a really good sense of what do we want to achieve for ourselves, for each other.
Thanks, Kitty. Kate, what about specific skills that you think we can share with people and potentially get paid for?
So I particularly think that there's 1 in 5 people in the UK who are disabled, and you know, people who have got chronic illnesses and disabilities are continuously forgotten about. They're just, I feel like we're always pushed to the bottom of the pile, and they as a whole, we all want somebody to, you know, to be able to not just look up to, but to be able to kind of just look at and feel like, okay, I get what they're doing, I'm looking at you, and will kind of just join in with. So when people tune into some of my dance sessions that I do, they understand that I've got a chronic illness too. And when I put my hand up and I can't get my arm the full way because I've had a bad shoulder that day, they're like, oh, well, that's okay. And I feel okay about that. It's kind of like this thing about empathy and knowing that there's somebody out there who's the same as you. And I think I don't even know what I'm trying to say about it, but I just feel like it's really important that there's people out there who are, you know, disabled and who do have chronic illnesses in the industry. And we're not just having the people who are completely brilliant dancers, but also the people who are, you know, the Paralympians and the really, really sporty, fantastic dancers. We want all the normal people as well. We want the people who are going on live stream and doing it all wrong and things are going wrong, because that's the things that people want to see. They want to see that you don't have to be brilliant and things can, you know, the bits of you can't work and all of this kind of lot. And I think that's the really important thing about it. We just need to know that there's a lot of people out there who are similar, who want the support, who want to dance, and that's why you should employ people who are just the full thing, and represent everybody. I rambled a bit there, didn't I?
Thank you. Jo, is there anything more that you want to add before we go on to audience questions?
I think the only thing that I'd like to add again is, like, picking up from Kate's point, we want to see more dancers representing different areas of the population, because there's so many diverse people in the world right now that you almost want to have dancers that represent each of these diverse different sections of the population. So I think it is really, really important that dancers with different accessible needs are becoming more and more visible within mainstream dance companies and things like that. So that's really important. And I think when I'm, you know, like with me planning classes that I've been doing live and also the digital plan, I've sort of had to think, well, some of the audience will have different accessible needs, but there'll also be members of the audience that do not. So I've had to think about how I can do a standing version to the very best of my ability on my crutches, and then how I can do a sitting version. And I think one thing that has helped me is because I was a dancer before I acquired my disability. I think I've been able to use some of that knowledge to apply it to both areas. But I think, again, it's really, really important that doing dance to cater to many different people, you almost want to make sure that you make everyone feel included and show them that, you know, it doesn't matter what your differences are, as long as you can be determined, have fun, that's what it's all about.
Hey, Louise.
Hi, I'm sorry. I was being all really good and staying nice and quiet, but I can't help myself. I just wanted to pick up on a point that Joseph said. I think it might be really useful, actually, because there might be people watching who are, most people are now going to be working online in order to, either they're generating income or they're not generating income. And you guys hold the knowledge really in terms of accessibility and inclusion, in terms of practice. So I think something that might be really useful, there'll probably be a lot of disabled people watching, dancers and artists watching this anyway, and who may know, but for anybody that's perhaps not and interested in how they can make their work more accessible, I'm wondering if maybe each of you could just give, and including you, Kimberley, just give one thing that perhaps somebody might be able to do in terms of a practical thing to make their online delivery more accessible. And it can be all ends of the spectrum. It could be really simple, that because we assume that people know these things. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'll go back to muting.
Shall I go first? I would say to really consider how and when you use music, because I've had experiences where, because obviously the sound quality is different when you're working through a laptop, and actually sometimes I find it really difficult to differentiate the sound of like if there's music on in the background, whereas if you're in a class sometimes you might have music on low, and actually it helps to really make the atmosphere feel more relaxed, and it can be actually quite soothing and quite nice, particularly at the beginning of a class. Sometimes on an online setup I actually find the use of sound quite challenging if it's not in a unless it's used in a quite a particular way, like for a particular exercise, which is it's just a really different consideration I've noticed from the live experience to the online class experience. Yeah. Laura, let's go Joe actually. Joe, do you have any practical tips?
So for me, when I think about doing the movement myself, I have to think about what's the specific function of the movement, what is the intention, and how can I translate that into something else. So I think to give anyone advice about doing an inclusive project is kind of think that way, rather than thinking, oh, well, I may have dancers, you know, who may not be able to achieve certain movements. You want to think more about the possibilities of doing something that's entirely different but still focuses on some of the same intentions and the same movements and dynamics and things like that. So that I think that would be my advice.
Thanks, Joe. Kate?
Mine's quite a simple one. Mine's if you're doing something on like Instagram Live, save it and story so people can watch it for the 24 hours, because when I've run my dance classes, people aren't well, it's 5 o'clock when you're streaming it, and they also want the ability to watch it back. So if you can't keep up with the pace that you're learning it, you want to be able to go back and review it. And also some people as in me, I screen record people's lessons so that I can watch it back again and again if not. So yeah, please save Instagram Lives if you're doing it on Instagram Lives, or if you're doing it anywhere else. If you've got the ability to save it, it's brilliant.
And Laura, I know you spoke about sign before, and I'm just thinking, like, I guess Makaton as well, like, because we're looking on YouTube as well, you can really easily access, like, learning Makaton, even specific signs, or even if you can add in specific signs, or there are particular, like, songs you can learn that you can learn Makaton signs from, which I guess would be really helpful as well. But is there any other thoughts you had around making your practice?
Definitely for me, I feel like it's a case of sorry, doorbell. It's a case of, I know that sometimes paces of classes can be quite very quick and stuff, so I'd like to think that taking breaks is obviously a really great thing, and to allow your participants to take breaks and feel free to take breaks. And so maybe it's just about reiterating that to your audience, or to whoever's, you know, or having an option. So if you have a class, maybe, I know that recently I got asked to do a pre-recorded class, and actually it's nice so that, you know, going back to sort of what Kate was saying about being able to go back and, you know, re-watch things, that's a good thing. So doing a pre-recorded class is something that could be interesting, so that, you know, you can literally say, you can stop now, or you can pause at any time and take your time doing stuff, rather than I have to keep up with an Instagram Live class, which is fine, you know, depending on who you want to, sort of your audience is. And I feel like that's something that I know that I would like to implement if and when I do a class. So, yeah.
Kitty, can I ask you to respond to an audience question which relates to something that we've spoken about a little bit already?
Okay.
And she is talking, Esther Kilbride, she mentions about the use of digital media, and do we think it has the potential for long-term positive change in the way, like, we as dance artists, the way we deliver output? Is it something that we think can stay? And
I really hope so. I really, really strongly hope so. It is. As Kimberley says, it's something that we've talked about together before. It's something that I've been talking about for a long time before all this happened, trying to work with the companies that we do work with to start to create a digital presence for our classes, because this is the thing, as disabled artists and as companies who work with disabled artists, we need to understand that disability doesn't just look like, oh, my body is different to yours, but I can still turn up and work a long day in the studio and do a bunch of tricks, and it takes no toll on me. Mm-hmm. That's not everyone's experience of disability. For me, it's, I can turn up and I can work really hard, and then I need a ton of recovery time, and I will probably, I can do a really intensive project and I will be very ill afterwards. And that's a compromise that I'm really happy to make, because I love the work that I do. I love the people that I work with, and I long to get back to working with those people in person. But I don't get out to class. Last year, I got out to class that I wasn't teaching twice. I'm not keeping my practice fresh, except when I'm working with other people on projects. So this has been a joy for me this last month, seeing what other people do, getting their approaches without having to be well enough to leave my home is amazing. And I'm really, really hoping that we will continue doing this. I think I probably will continue offering online sessions once this is over. You know, it's a long, slow process to figure out going from a kind of rough and ready, I'm just knocking out classes because we need to right now, to what is the best way I can produce classes from my tiny room in a tiny flat that will be understood for you all. But I think we can really see that the need is here. The need is here, and we need, ideally, we need the companies that have support and funding to be working with us to, you know, ensure that the work that we're doing gets better coverage, and maybe ensure that we're getting paid properly for the work that we're doing. Because like Kate, I'm offering my work for free, but I have a tip jar, and people who haven't had their incomes affected by lockdown are very kindly tipping, but it's not the same as being paid properly for work.
Very true. Thanks, Kitty. Kate, we had a question from, let me make sure I get the person's name right, from Cheshire Dance, and I immediately thought of you because you talked about that you were offering inclusive sessions, and they asked us, like, what are the different ways that we could support participants who are now engaging with dance at home with family members or carers who possibly aren't usually the people that would support them in participating in a dance session. And I just wondered if you'd had any family members taking part in dance sessions with your participants that you worked with.
Yeah, we did actually. Somebody who took part in one of my dance sessions, I think it was last week, her sister joined in, which was really, really lovely to see. And so this girl was in a wheelchair, and she's in a wheelchair, and then her sister, who's totally able-bodied, joined in as well and did the adapted version. So like Joseph had said, I actually do a similar thing where I do so I do the seated version of the choreography, but I actually tell them how they could adapt it if you do it stood up. And she did the standing up version of the choreography, and her sister did it sat down, which was really, really lovely. And I think it's quite an interesting thing, because a lot of the people that I work with at the moment, they've got ME, I've got ME, and it's quite difficult. It's quite a difficult condition to work with, because you have to be very, very careful with exercise. It's not recommended to do exercise, and you've got to be really careful with how much you're pushing your body. So seated dance is something that we found is kind of okay to do if you're able to do it. And a lot of the family members who that, you know, a lot of them maybe would be very cautious about family members doing it if they've got disabled people. They were a bit funny about them doing exercise, but watching them do one of my sessions where we're going very gently and they're not having too much payback afterwards, they're okay. And the fact that they're actually joining in is really nice to see. So it's kind of this trial and error thing. So yeah, I think it's gone really nicely, and you just hope that it'll continue and people will be able to join in a bit more later on. But as I say, I'll try to keep it short. But different conditions. It's hard to cater for different conditions, but it's gone well.
That relates to the next question, which I was going to ask you, Laura, actually. Thank you, Kate. That Liz Clark asked us, were there any particular things that we've learned or experienced through this process of being in isolation and working in this new way that we want to continue and take forward and develop further, maybe post-lockdown? And so, yeah, did you have any thoughts around that?
Yeah, definitely. And it goes in like sort of side by side with sort of the previous question about having sort of being online. And I think just putting yourself out there online is something that I've never been a fan of, just because I don't like this online. No. But it's just this idea of sort of putting our work out there, and I mean even just being online, you know, where you, and I do this thing where I do a dance a day. So my dance a day series is that I do just dance for a whole song, because sometimes that's, you know, it's kind of nice just to jam along to a song and dance how you want and freestyle and that kind of thing. And that's good for me. That's, you know, that's some dance that I can do and showcase what I do. So to have that and online, and I mean, like Lou says that she's got editing software at home, and that's something that I've learned at home, doing more and more editing and making videos and making stuff presentable online, which is kind of another skill that I've acquired through sort of lockdown. I mean, I was doing it before, but even more so to sort of have not pressures, but to give myself deadlines to be like releasing my podcast, releasing this, and stuff like podcasting and stuff. It's quite nice to do things like this that I've, you know, talk about dance, talk about work, talk about everyday life, this kind of thing that is sort of normal, that people want to be listening to. I don't know if people want to be listening to, but I feel like stuff that I feel like I want to get out of me, that this is a nice sort of way of doing it, you know, that you can actually just, and I've learned so much just by, I think my Instagram page has been quite, my Instagram and Facebook sort of pages have been more active now through lockdown than they have been ever. So it's quite, you know, and it's just this portal for people to see, employers to see, to, you know, people who want to work with, to make collaborations, to make connections with. And actually it's nice for them to see what you can do and not be limited by your title or what it is that you have or whatever disability you have, but actually what you can do, you're showcasing it through the visual, you know, through a platform where it's accessible, you know. So I suppose that's, I'm hoping that answered the question. I think I might have diverged a little.
It did. We've covered so much during this time, and I thought just to finish, we had a question from Christina Fulcher, and Joseph, I wanted to put it to you as the thing to finish, no pressure, but she just said, she asked us when we think of how we would describe inclusive movement, and I wanted to put that to you as a way of sort of rounding up, what do you think inclusive movement is?
So for me, I think inclusive movement is embodying everyone's differences, celebrating these differences, and then being able to create something new and exciting around these differences. And I think it's really, really important. And again, as I was talking about a bit earlier, that when you look at how someone's able to move, you don't focus on the restrictions. You look at, okay, so this is what we have to work with, and these are the possibilities that we can do to push someone further than they thought was possible.
Thank you so much, Joe.
That's okay.
We've covered so much during this time. The realities of being a freelance disabled artist during COVID-19 and what that means, and our different experiences of that, the realities of the financial situation, and also the different skills we have and how we can share those with people. Thank you so much. Yes, Louise.
Sorry, I can't help myself. Yeah, it was just, I know Kimberley's going to round up and say thank you and everything. I just want to say thank you. And I also want to say that it's gone really quick. So it may be that if the response to this video is good and people want to talk about specific things, we can perhaps do some more of these or do another one, because this time has just flown, hasn't it? I'll hand back to you, Kimberley, but thank you, everybody.
No, thank you so much. And I hope that you've all felt that you've been able to contribute, and you've all offered like all different insights, and that's really amazing. And I think, yeah, I think this is something, so big clap. Thank you. And yeah, I hope to see you all in person at some point soon. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.